Hey guys, it's Rushdie here. How are you all doing? Welcome back to the channel. Today I've got a video for you where we talk about how to get the most out of the netcode when it comes to Street Fighter 5 and generally just fighting games online. A few things to mention before we start the guide on this. So this guide, as mentioned in the sort of disclaimer at the beginning, just be very careful when doing this because it will be very different depending on the type of router / modem that you've got. So different ISPs use different devices. Different devices have different configuration settings. Once you log into the router, you're presented with a different UI, and that UI will dictate where your options are for setting static IP addresses, for setting up port forwarding. Two crucial things you need to do this properly. So the three things I'm going to show you initially are: we're going to set a static IP address that's fixed at the router level. Then we are going to configure the PS4. Remember, this guide is for PS4 only, not PC, but the theory can be used for PC. Just the port allocation will be different. Yeah, so then we'll do a DNS change at the PS4 level once you've set the static IP address at the modem / router level, and then we'll set up the port forwarding. You cannot forward ports to an IP address on your modem / router unless it's been set statically, because if the way to explain it without going into much detail is every time you connect a device to your router, not all routers, modems or / routers will give an IP address to that device, and that will always be the IP address for that device. Sometimes if you unplug and you reconnect, you may get a new IP address. So if you've told the modem / router to send data on certain ports to a specific IP address, but that is no longer your PS4 IP address wired, then it's not going to work, the port forwarding basically. So we have to fix the IP of the PlayStation 4 on the modem or router. I'm with Virgin Media. I'm based in the UK, and I've got one device. It's a modem and router all in one package. Most ISPs provide a device like that, but those of you that are a bit more savvy will have the default ISP modem / router set to modem mode, and you'll have another device which does all the routing for you. So you can configure things within the router that's plugged into the modem. But I've got an all-in-one device. I prefer an all-in-one device, but they're not as good as a dedicated router, I believe. I think down the line I'll be looking at getting a Netdoomer, but that's another conversation. Well, not a Netdoomer. I'll be looking at it'll be a Netgear router, but it'll have the Netdoomer software on it. But anyway, that's the introduction to what we're doing. So let's start off with setting. Let's get the details we need for the router first. So go to settings. And again, guys, if you get stuck with this, just ask questions, but don't do this if you're not entirely sure. You've got to be comfortable with what you're doing, so do your research. So read into what your router specs are, which device you're using, and look at how you can set static IP addresses and port forwarding. If you're not sure how to do that with your router, I don't advise following this guide because you may mess things up. And if you mess up your router, you may not be able to log back into your router to sort it out. If you can't do that, your ISP will charge you for another router to be sent out. So that's a warning. Just be careful with this. Make sure you know what you're doing before you go into this. If you're on Virgin Media, this is perfect. This will be exactly what you do if you're UK based. But I imagine we're all on different ISPs, so just be cautious of that. So yeah, just go back. So go to settings on the PS4 menu. Go to network, and make sure you're wired for this. And once you're connected and you're wired, go to view connection status. You should have your IP address settings set to automatic. That's what we normally have set when we connect wirelessly. So what I want you to do now is either take a photo of this screen or just write down some details. You need to write down the IP address. You need to write down the subnet mask. You need to write down the default gateway, and that's it. Oh, and the MAC address. So the MAC address for LAN cable, not the Wi-Fi MAC address. Write down the MAC address for LAN cable. That's very important for when we want to set a static IP address on the router or the modem. I'm going to refer to it as modem because mine's a modem / router, just so it makes a bit more sense. So jot that down. I'll take a photo of that now. Already got it written down on my laptop anyway, but I'll take a photo just so I'm doing it with you guys. So take a picture of that, or write it down if you haven't got access to a phone. So the IP address will be the IP address we use statically on the router, the 192.168.0.29. That's the IP address currently that's been automatically assigned to your PS4. That's mine, should I say. Subnet mask is often the same. I think it's always 255.255.2550. Default gateway. So that's the default gateway of my router, 192.168.0.1. But yours may be different. So don't worry if that's different. That's normal. Depends on what ISP you're with, what device you're using. The primary DNS and secondary DNS, we're going to tackle that a bit later. We're going to change that. So I think that primary and secondary is the PS4 DNS address. We're going to switch that to a Google DNS on the PS4, but we'll do that shortly. Make sure you jot down the MAC address. So done, dusted. We can come off of that, and now we're going to go into the router to set the IP address. We're going to assign that IP address, the .29 or whatever yours is showing, statically on the router first, on the modem. Sorry, on the modem. I'll call it router. We'll call it router, but mine's a modem/router. So let's do that now. Okay guys, so now I am on my laptop and I am going to log into my router. So I've punched in the default gateway we saw previously on the PS4 menu. So my default gateway is 192.168.0.1. So make sure you punch that in with the dots, the IP address. Yeah, this is basically, I think this is classed as like the IP address of the router. So if you're not sure how to log in to your router to get to the login page, just read your paperwork and it should tell you how to do that in your documentation for your router. But generally, from what I've known in the past, if you punch in that default gateway IP address into a browser, so like I said, 192.168.0.1 is the one for the Virgin Hub 3.0, you'll get a login prompt. You've obviously got to be connected to that network as well. I should mention that. So your laptop, you've got to use a laptop, or you can do it on the phone, but I don't recommend doing it on a phone. It has to be connected to the router first. It has to be on that network, so wired or wireless. Punch in that IP address, what I've just highlighted there, just that bit, into a browser, the default gateway, and you should get a login prompt. Now, if you're prompted for a password, you will be prompted for a password. Again, that will either be in your ISP paperwork or it will be on the router itself. So you've got to do a bit of digging for that. If you're unsure, just check Google for the model you have and look at where the information is in terms of logging into your router. If you can't find the information, then you may get suggestions as to what the default password may be. Mine's specific for my router, so if I'd lost the sticker that's on the router, I wouldn't know how to log in. So I've got that jotted down somewhere else. Let me just hide this screen from you so you don't see that transaction. I'll just log in quickly. Okay, there we go. So I'm logged into my router now, and for this device, for this ISP, I believe we're going down to advanced settings and then DHCP. So it's something you want to get to the DHCP settings for your router of that device. Now, what this does is it shows you all the devices connected to your router, whether it's wired or Wi-Fi. It shows you everything here. Now, I know that this is the PS4, even though it doesn't say PS4 here, the name. I know that MAC address and that IP address is the PS4. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to add reserve rule. I want to reserve an IP address for a certain device, and we jotted down the MAC address before. So just be careful, guys. Make sure you know what you're doing here. What I am doing here is I am going to use the IP address that we saw previously on the PS4 menu. Now, if you remember, it was 192.168.29. For me, it was .29. That's what was automatically given in terms of IP to my PS4 when I connected wired. When I automatically connected to the network via wire, the router gave my PS4 this IP address. So I'm going to use that again because I know that's available on my network. Always use the one. I think it's best practice to use the one that's assigned to the PS4 automatically, which was 29 in my case. It should be different for you depending on how many devices you have connected and what ISP you're on. So you make sure you use that same one. If you're unsure, just ask questions and I'll best explain it to you guys. But just remember, when I took the photograph of the network status on the PS4 menu, the IP address of the PS4, not the default gateway, not the subnet mask, not the DNS IPs, the IP address, just IP address was 192.168.0.29. I'm actually looking at it now on the screenshot and that's what it's showing. So we'll punch that in. And also make sure you punch this in accurately, the MAC address. Punch in the MAC address that was on that same screen. So if you remember when I said MAC address LAN cable, not the Wi-Fi MAC address, make sure you enter the LAN cable MAC address. And I think it's best to make sure it's case sensitive as well. I believe that's best practice. Oops. And just sanity check it, just make sure it's right. So I've got 0C FE 4505 1E F3. If you make a mistake here, this will not work. Now, I've never done this before for Virgin Media. So I had this all set up on my PlusNet router previously, but we've changed ISPs now. So this is the first time I'm doing the add reserve rule on the Virgin router. So let's try that now. See if that works. Right. It looks like it's doing something. If this doesn't work, we can give it an IP address that's not allocated to anything on that list that we just saw there. Got a feeling the router restarts now, so we may have to wait for it to reconnect. Let's just see. If this takes too long, I'll just speed it up and then we'll catch up once it reconnects. So guys, yeah, it looks like that actually restarted my router when I did that change. So it's come back now and I'm reconnected. So I've scrolled down and you can see there it has reserved MAC address and this IP address for this MAC address. So .29 for the MAC address of my PS4. Now we can validate this if I scroll up by checking here, and I can see I just lost it. Oh, there you go. Same IP address, and it should be the same MAC address. Pretty sure it is. So we can even. You know what I'm going to do actually, because my PS4 has been on .29 for ages. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change this. It's going to make sure .29, 18, 20. I'm going to change this to 50, just to make sure this works. Okay. So let's delete that. I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to reassign it to. .50. Once I've done that, I'm going to come back in the PS4 menu and let's see if the IP address has changed. The IP address has changed on the PS4 menu when I set it to automatic configuration. That means this has worked. Not only that, we'll also set the DNS settings at the same time. We'll change it to the Google ones. So let me quickly punch this in now with you guys watching, and then we'll jump into that PS4 menu. Shouldn't take too long, but don't forget we've got to reset this will reset the router again. My wife's gonna go mad. What are you doing? You told me you were playing Street Fighter. she won't go mad. Just stir in the pot a little bit. Could add a bit of drama to it all, you know what I mean? Right, so let's double check that. 0C, make sure it's perfect. FE 4505 1E F3, that's fine. I'm going to change that now to 50 because that's not. Make sure what you set as the IP address is not allocated to anything. You can see there 29, 18, 20, 21, 13, 14, 24, 15, 16, 26. 50 is not assigned. So I'm going to add that rule now. And I think the router is going to drop off. So let's catch up again back at the PS4 menu. And let's see if that IP address has been assigned to the PS4. Right guys, we're back on the PS4. And I'm going to go to network. And I'm going to go to view connection status. That should be the same as before. So that was the IP address that was assigned previously. I've not disconnected from the network since the static IP address was assigned to the MAC address, the LAN cable MAC address, the MAC address of the wired connection. So we're going now to be a test. Let's go to setup internet connection, LAN cable, easy. It should do it all by itself. Let's see. Not going to test. View connection status. Aha, there we go. So you see the IP address has changed now. Because we've assigned that IP address to the MAC address of the LAN network, it's changed to 50. Because as you saw previously, I set it to 50. That's brilliant. So we've assigned a brand new IP address to the PS4 for this network that I'm on. So what I've done now will not work at my mom's house, for example, because that's a different network. But it's worked for the network at my own home, if that makes sense. That's great, but that's not the end of this now. So take out your phone or your pen and paper, take another photo of this, yeah? Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to enter this information. All this information here we're going to enter manually, but we're going to change the DNS settings now. Show you how to do that. Set up internet connection, LAN cable, custom this time. We're going to go to manual for IP address settings, and we're going to punch in the details that we need here. So now I'm going to punch in, let's bring up my screenshot, which is upside down. There we go, sorted. 192.168.0. You guessed it, 50. Because 50 is what the router is assigning in terms of IP to this PS4. So we must set it to 50 because it's always going to be 50 on this network. Subnet mask, as I mentioned, is generally always 255.255.255.0. But if it's different for you, just set it to whatever it showed previously. So whatever came up when we automatically connected, just copy what was there. That's done. Default gateway, that will not have changed at all. So whatever your default gateway was when we connected via wired automatically, just punch that in. I'm going to double check that, sure it's right. 192.168.0.1. Make sure you put the periods in, the dots in as well. Now this is what's custom about this setup. We're going to use the Google primary DNS settings. 8.8.8.8. It's the first one. Second one, 8. Oops. Make sure you clear that first. 8.8.4.4. Right, I'll leave that on screen so you can just digest what I've done there. But make sure you use the IP address you set up statically on your router. Your router, not my router. Use the subnet mask that was showing on the automatic wired connection on the PS4 before we started to do the manual connection, the manual setup. Use the default gateway that was showing when you were manually connected to the LAN, when you were manually connected via wire to your modem. So again, that should be the same one you logged into your router with. These will be the two that differ. Primary DNS, secondary DNS, 8888, 8844. Once that's done, next, MTU settings, keep it on automatic. Proxy server, do not use, job done. go to view connection status. It should look exactly the same as your screenshot. The only difference is your primary DNS and your secondary DNS. I'm pointing at the screen as if you can see me pointing at it, but yeah, that's the only thing that will change. Primary DNS, secondary DNS. The IP address, subnet mask, default gateway should be exactly the same as they were after we set the static IP address on the router, but when we reconnected automatically to the router. If you remember how we did that, before we did it manually, we went to setup connection, LAN cable, and we went to easy, and that automatically connected us with the new settings. But this time, once we already did that, we went back into that again, and we manually connected with these settings that you can see on the screen now. That's it. So just to recap what we've done, we set an IP address statically. We set a static IP address, to the PS4, and we've used an IP address that has never been used before on the router. It's not been assigned to any device before, based on the DHCP list. You must look at the DHCP list to make sure that IP address you're about to assign is free. Generally higher numbers, when I say higher numbers, it's the last digit. So the 192.168.0 will remain the same, but it's that last part of the IP address. Generally higher numbers are not allocated. I think the highest number you can go up to is like 255, but stick between like 50 and 150, that should be fine. I doubt anyone's got that many devices connected, unless you're like Drake or something, but yeah, that will work fine. So we've done the static IP address at the router level. We've done the DNS change at the PS4 level. The reason why I've done DNS at PS4 level is because some ISPs do not allow you to change your DNS at router level. Virgin Media is one of those ISPs. I cannot change my primary and secondary DNS at the router level. I can only do it at the device level. Here you can see I've done it at the PS4. PS4 is a device I want to change that on. So that's two, I'm going to call them buffs, we've done for our PlayStation 4. The last thing we do now we've set up this static IP address, is we do some port forwarding. Just another disclaimer, you cannot do port forwarding. I think we spoke about this earlier on. You cannot do port forwarding until you've done the static IP address. So we've done that now. So let's go back into the router one more time to set up those ports, the port forwarding. Once that's done, then we're good to go. So now guys, we're on the router again, and we are going to set up the port forwarding rules. So the information that's going to be set on the router on what data to send to the PS4. So if you remember now, I've set the static IP address on the PS4. It's 192.168.0.50 for my network. So now we're going to assign some rules on where to send data to. So we're going to send it to the PS4, obviously. So back on the router, advanced settings again, and security, and I've got an option there for port forwarding. As I mentioned to you guys, depending on what device you're using and what ISP you're with, the options you go through to get to port forwarding may be different. So again, you have to do a bit of research online to find out how to port forward for your make and model of router. So just do a bit of Googling, a bit of reading up, probably read a couple of sources just to make sure the information is correct, and then have a look. Do not make changes to your router to put to any rules until you know where you're going. Have a little look at it first, get a feel of how it sort of looks on your router interface, and then you can start making changes. What I'm going to do here is I'll try and keep it as simple as I can, because this is quite a confusing, it's not hard to do if you understand how your router interprets the data you're inputting, but this is the information. If you can read that, I'll make it a little bit bigger. So you see this here, this is what we focused on. This is from, just to show you, this is from the CRI CAPCOM website. So this is in relation to the recent patch that went in for matchmaking. If I go down again, it's here. So we want to configure these ports using these two protocols, data to be sent when it's hitting these, well, this data sent via these ports on these transmission types to be sent straight to the PS4, the PS4 being that IP address we assigned previously. Now I know this sounds confusing, but it's actually very straightforward. But what makes this difficult is how you punch this data into your router. So for me, if I go back to my router, I have this option here where I can set the port number and it gives me a range, so I don't have to punch them in. You have to punch them in individually, but if you've got a number of ports that are sequential, should I say, so like 30841, 42, 43, 44, 44, 45, keep going up. If it's sequential, you can create a range. Not only that, but you can also set the protocol to TCP only. There's another option called UDP, but if you want the rule to apply to both TCP and UDP for that particular range, you got this option here for both. That's how my router interprets the rules, and it doesn't like rules overlapping, so I can't have a rule saying like 20002 to 20002. So what I've done there is I've made a range of just not, the range is nothing. It's just that one singular port I want to add a rule to. You can't have that. I'll show you now for TCP, and then create another rule on the PlayStation. It's the exact same port, and do UDP. It won't let you have that same port, but using two different protocols separately. It should give me an error now if I do this. Yeah, see, rule already exists. It's not looking at the transmission method, the protocol. It's looking at the port number, and it's saying you've already got something in place for external using that port. So if I want to use that port only, so that's why I've done 20002 for local start and end point. So I'm only focused on this one port, not a range, not 20002 to 20004. So that would obviously include 20003. It's only a singular port I'm looking at. It won't let me do it because I've already got a rule in place for this external start and end point. So I know it's a little confusing, but I'm going to do it with you now and try and explain it. So these are old rules now. I'm going to delete all these and we'll do them again. I think that was just a test rule, that one. So let's delete them. Let's bring that site back up. So these are the ports. So just digest what ports we want to add. So we've got TCP. We want to open that singular port, that singular port, that singular port, and that singular port. For UDP, we have a range from 30840 all the way to 30859. So that's going to be 20 ports open within the range, because you've got from 40 all the way to 59. If that makes sense. So everything in between that range will be open using UDP if we use this rule. Same goes for that too. 30870 to 30879. So that's going to be, sorry, that's going to be 19. That's going to be 19, and that's going to be 9, isn't it? So everything in between, that will be open. But what makes this difficult on my router is I can't overlap, remember. I can't have, so for example here I've got 30840 and for UDP, and I've got 30840 for TCP. So what I have to do is, if you can see that, I'll just increase the font so you can see it. Ignore that. So I've had to do a list of rules which include both ports, a rule for both where they overlap, and then the range is changed. So easy one first. So TCP of just 20002, is that there? I don't need that port open for UDP, so it's not both, it's just TCP. Then I've got a rule for TCP and UDP for 30840. So I'm only doing one port there, 30840 to 30840. So a singular port, but for both protocols. And the reason I'm doing that is because I've got it here, there, and there. Now my range for UDP here will be different. I will start from 30841 to 30859. Oh no, it won't even be 59, it'll be 49. So that is this here. UDP 30841 to UDP 30849. And the reason I've changed that range there, try and get them both on the screen. It's a little confusing, like I say, it's very confusing, but it will make sense when I punch it in. The reason I'm doing that is because I've added this port and this singular port as a rule for both protocols there. So my range now changes. It starts from 4.1, which is that there. The reason I stop at 4.9 is because I've got a rule here for TCP 30850. So I need to stop the range at 4.9, do another rule, which is that one, for 30850 for TCP and UDP, and then I can continue this range from 30851 to 30859, which completes that range. I know I probably lost you guys, so let me punch it in and it'll make sense. But if your router's like mine, if you use this, it's on screen now, that'll work. Just if you want a dummies guide, just do exactly what's there. Where you've got, you know, we can even change this. Let's change that to both. Change that to both. Change that to both. Let's make it even more simple to digest on screen. So where I've got both, that's a singular port. Singular port, singular port. Where I've got a range, this is the UDP range. I've had to modify because we've got a both rule in place where the port numbers like there and there overlap. So again, I know it's a little confusing, guys, but just focus on what's here. And I'm going to punch it into my router now. Let's start with the first one, create new rule. Remember, my PlayStation is .50, so this one's the easy one. If you're required to put a range in, just put the singular port in for all ranges, start and end, very local and external. Protocol TCP. Do I want to enable? Hell yeah. Add rule. That's the easy one. But some routers, I think my old router was a lot easier to do this. You could have overlapping rules. You could have the same port mentioned, but for two different protocols. It made life a lot easier. This is more intuitive in the sense that, yeah, you can have like a both rule, but it makes it more tricky to punch the numbers in. But it's not impossible. To create another rule, it's always going to be your PS4 IP address. Remember, mine is .50 on my network. It depends on what we assigned on your router, or you assign on your router for your PS4. So now we're going to do another singular rule because we've got an overlap. Remember, the overlap here is I've got 40 there, I've got 40 there. So for TCP and UDP, so I'm going to punch that in there, 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 and there on the PS4, and this time it'll be both. Enable, yes. And I'll let you again have a little look at that once it's on screen. Like I said, I apologize, it's so confusing, but this is kind of why people don't do this, because it's difficult to digest and it's not straightforward. But this is the whole point of doing this video. If I can make it easy to understand, then that's a bonus. That's a win in my book. There you go. Got a singular rule on this port. Oh, sorry, a singular port on this rule, but for both. Create new rule. Now we're going to start working on this range, but we're going to modify it because we start at 4.1, but we've got to stop at 4.9 because we have this here, which is used by both. Obviously that's there and that's within this range, so we need to stop this range at 4.9 first to partially complete the range, which is, let's do this. So it's that there. Remember, this is UDP only as well. Set that as your start point, set that as your start point, and your end point should be set local and external. So that's the range: local, start, end, external, start, end. This is UDP only on add rule. And again, I'll let you just absorb what I've done there once it's set. There you go. So what this is saying is that, again, that singular port is being used by TCP and UDP. This range is only being used by UDP. So pretty much I'm going from 30840 because it's here, 249 on the UDP protocol, because it's there and it's here. Whereas for TCP, it's only looking at this port within this sort of like range. We're just doing that. So create new rule, and now we need to do a both rule for 30850. That gets punched in on every single field there. It's a singular port, both, because we need it open for TCP and it's within this range, as I mentioned. On, so yeah, both on add rule, and we just follow this pattern until all the config is in place. So I'll just use this. I'll even put this in the video description if you need to copy and paste it. I'll put it in the comment section as well. So that's 50 done for both. So we're going to start with UDP again from 51. That's the start range. 50 protocol UDP enable, and it ends at 59. Is that right? Yeah, it does end at 59. That's right, because that is the end of this range. Doubted myself then. That's fine. UDP only. Yep, we had that. Now we've got another both rule. Just to explain why the both rule is there. That's because this port is being used by TCP and UDP, but at the start of this UDP range. Like I said, guys, I know it's confusing. Punch that in because it's a singular port. Punch it in every field. Make sure you set your PS4 IP address. This is for both TCP UDP. On. You want it to be on to obviously put the rules in place. It's probably worth rebooting your router as well after this is done, once you've configured it. It was much easier to do on my. I was with PlusNet before. Much easier to do on the router they provide. And then finally, create new rule. This is a UDP specific rule. Start port 30871. Reason we use that is because it's after this number, and we're going to 30879. There we go. Set the PlayStation IP address. Protocol is UDP and enable. Add rule. And that's it. That's how it should look once it's done. So there's a lot of information there, but I think that's the best way to do it to ensure you get all the right ports. This here, this is interesting. It mentions on another website that this is the ports used by the Unreal Engine. So I'm gonna try adding this in as an experiment. Oh, actually no, I won't do it now. I'll do it in my own time. So ignore that. You never saw that. Yeah, I'll just put it down there. Hide that away from you guys, but that's for my information. So let's put this there. I'm going to see if this works later on, if my connection's pretty bad. So ports allocation. Cool, that's for later on. Save that. Cool, that's done now, guys. So you've done the port forwarding. Took a bit longer than I wanted it to, but that's actually done for your router, for my router, sorry. Now we've already applied changes. I would restart your router, and then we can go in game and start looking at how the matchmaking feels after those changes. So just to recap, we've set the static IP address at the router level, we changed the DNS at PS4 level, and then we've set port forwarding specific rules on the router itself. That's all you can do in terms of your connection, and obviously making sure you're wired as well. That's important. With all this will not work if you're on Wi-Fi. You've got to do this if you're wired anyway. On that note, actually, what we're going to do after this is I'm going to go through some tips within the Street Fighter game itself in terms of matchmaking. What can you do in terms of matchmaking to better your selection of matches? So I'm going to do that next. And at the very end of this video, speaking about being wired, I'm going to show you some information on the POWERLINE adapters. So if you guys don't know what POWERLINE adapters are, they're basically adapters that plug into your wall sockets, your electrical wall sockets in your home. that carry internet traffic. What you do is you have your router and you have an Ethernet cable from your router into a POWERLINE adapter. When you buy the POWERLINE adapters, they come in packs of 2. So the Ethernet cable from your router goes into the first POWERLINE adapter that's plugged into the wall near your router, and then your PlayStation 4, you plug an Ethernet cable into your PlayStation 4, and that goes into the second POWERLINE adapter, and that goes into a wall socket as well. The point of that is it's for people, including like myself, who can't get direct to their router from where they are. When I stream from my house, rather than my parents' house, I have to use POWERLINE adapters because I can't reach the router. I need a super long cable to get in. So I use POWERLINE adapters to send my internet signal to my house electrical wiring, and then it comes out the second POWERLINE adapter into my PS4, and it doesn't affect speeds too badly. My connection seems stable when I've done throughput tests, and the speeds are still good. It's 100%. That doesn't even make sense. It's totally better than being on Wi-Fi. It is a wired signal if you use that. So the reason I mention that is because if you are thinking you're forced to play on Wi-Fi, you're not. It's worth investing in POWERLINE adapters, not even just for Street Fighter, just generally if you want to play wired. Invest in POWERLINE adapters, get some Ethernet cables that are the right length to reach the POWERLINE adapters from your devices, the router and the PS4, and that will help you get a better connection. If you set that up and then you go through these steps I've done, it'll work in exactly the same way. So yeah, we'll go for the matchmaking tips first on Street Fighter 5, and then I'll show you a diagram of how the POWERLINE adapters connect, and then I'll show you actually what the POWERLINE adapters look like and how you connect them up when you're doing the matchmaking. So guys, let's do that bit now. And I'm back, guys. So this is the PS4 version of Street Fighter 5. Now, when you're looking for matches, I tend never to use these 2 options here. Never bother. It does give you some filters, but you're kind of stuck in like a searching status. I'll show you now. So we've got PlayStation 4 only. You've got no ask option, basically. So PS4, 5-bar only, search. It's searching for opponents, but I've got no option to decline a match if it looks like it's going to be a bad match. So what you want to do is, you know the options at the bottom there? Go to Fight Request Options, and that's what you want to use. Now, set your rank match to on or your casuals to on. Now, I recommend if your PlayStation 4 only set to PlayStation 4, keep it PS4 versus PS4. But generally, even you go to any, it doesn't always mean it's going to lag. It depends on. There's more factors when it comes to PC opponents. That's why I think people avoid it. But I generally don't seem to notice it worse against PC these days. I find it bad across the board, so I don't really tend to limit it to PS4 only. But if I'm to give you my best advice, I'd say keep the PS4 only. Connection status, now this is debatable because there has been a matchmaking patch recently. I've always kept it to 5-bar only, but some people do use 4 to 5-bar. But I find when I used to use 4 to 5-bar, I got some crazy laggy connections, 4-bar players, and I used to get paired with people in the US. Now, for those of you who don't know this, I'm UK based, I'm in Europe, so I don't want to play people in the US. Even if it's East Coast, I don't want to play people in the US. So I would keep it to 5 bars. Problem with this now is after the matchmaking patch, 5 bars, it takes a long time to find games because they've made the search criteria much stricter, so be wary of that. But connection status, I generally say 5-bar. This is the important thing. Set battle confirmation to ask. Do not set it to automatic because you will automatically get paired with shit connections. You'll get 1-bar, 2-bar, 4-bar, I don't know about 3-bar, but you will get shady connections. Keep it to ask. Once that's done, apply settings. And that's it. I'd say that's my advice there. If you fight any players are laggy, then I recommend that you use the blacklist. Blacklist players that are laggy in matches, and don't run it back. If it's really, really bad, don't run it back. Like if I go on to, we're going to use Booney as an example here. After a match, just go to there. You've got an option there. How can I show you this? So yeah, you basically go to the players fight card. And you can see the bottom right there, you've got sub menu. Go to sub menu, add to blacklist, and you can blacklist a player. I generally just use unstable connection or just other, but generally unstable connection is the one you want to use. Add them to your blacklist, and that's it. I will no longer be paired with Booney when it comes to matchmaking in ranked and casuals. Use that feature if players are particularly bad, but you will notice your blacklist will fill up very quickly. So it's not the best tool, but it's the only defense we've got against known laggy players, because you do get bad lag against 5-bar players for some reason. Maybe it's because they're on Wi-Fi, because you may have a good connection but it may not be stable, so that might be why it shows 5 bars. The ping was good at that initial search time, if that makes sense. But as you can see now, I've not even got I was hoping to get one match come in. What we'll do is we'll change the criteria down to, let's do 3 to 5. Do not use 3 to 5. I'm just doing it to get a match, but I'll show you what it does if you've never seen it before. But yeah, so there you go, straight away it's come through. So hit options, and there you can validate whether you want to accept it or not. Mainly the opponent connection you want to look at. Is it a good connection? 4 out of 5 bars. For me, that's not good enough. I want 5 bar only, so we do not accept. And that's it. That's my tips on the matchmaking in Street Fighter 5. The last thing I'll show in this video is the POWERLINE adapter. So the POWERLINE adapter, all it does is it will give you, you will plug you get 2 adapters. One will go near your PS4, one will go near your router, and you need 2 Ethernet cables, shorter the better. One goes from your PlayStation 4 to the POWERLINE adapter near the PS4. It will have an Ethernet port within it. And then by your router, you'll plug your POWERLINE adapter into your mains there. So it's an electrical device. It goes in your mains, your power sockets in the wall, and then you'll plug a LAN cable from that POWERLINE adapter into your router. What that does is it gives you a connection, a wired connection from your PlayStation into your electrics in your home. Your internet connection will travel through your electrics from your home back to the router. So basically it's the other way around. So your internet connection comes into your router, modem router. That connection is then sent through the Ethernet cable into the POWERLINE adapter. Through the POWERLINE adapter, internet signal is ran through all your home, but the POWERLINE adapter is plugged in near your PlayStation through the mains. The Ethernet cable from that sends the connection from that POWERLINE adapter to the PlayStation 4. So it's basically modem, Ethernet cable, POWERLINE, house electric wiring to the second POWERLINE adapter, Ethernet cable, PlayStation. I'll do a little diagram of it before I go into the next section. Really straightforward though, and I'll show you them. Show you what they look like and how you wire them up. Okay guys, so this is the modem in my house, and as you can see there's an Ethernet port that isn't plugged into anything. What I'll be plugging that into is my first POWERLINE adapter. So this is a TP-Link device. Goes into my mains, in the main socket in the wall. It's got 2 Ethernet ports at the top. I only need 1. So from the modem, your Ethernet wire goes into the POWERLINE adapter. I can't show you me plugging this into the mains because it's difficult to get to it from here, but that'll go into your wall socket. That's the first part of this. And now the PlayStation. So I'm going to plug the second one in, exactly the same device. So you get 2 in a pack when you purchase POWERLINE adapters. You should get 2 anyway. This is going to go into the mains, and then I'm going to plug another Ethernet cable into the PlayStation, and that then is going to go into the second POWERLINE adapter, And that's it. Pretty much your internet signal will go from the modem or router to the first POWERLINE adapter, and then it will come from there, second one, Ethernet cable, into your PlayStation. Your PlayStation then is classed as a wired device, much better than using Wi-Fi. And that's it, guys. So that's everything I wanted to show you in this video in regards to improving your connection for fighting games, particularly Street Fighter 5. Any questions, any queries, give me a shout. Nice one.